Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 60 of Underexposed, our weekly macro show, seeing all the biggest topics and trends impacting crypto and broader Web3. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd. Folks, the bottom has fallen out on our beloved internet coins. Bitcoin sub 80K, ETH closing in on 2,000. Solana looks like it's about to drop below 100. Doesn't look great. Is it just 4-year cycle things, or is there something else afoot? We're going to talk about that on today's show, along with a lot more. I'm your host, Tyler D. Got my co-host in the house, D's GM. How you doing?
Doing great. Still on the baby schedule here, so half asleep, coming off a couple naps like usual. But glad to be here. Glad that we're getting our weekly dump right as we go live Tuesday at noon, and glad to talk about all things macro and crypto with you guys.
Set your clocks, folks. Every Tuesday, you can catch the falling wicks. Are you on? Did you just pass 1 month in dad life?
I think tonight is technically the 1 month.
All right, that's a good one.
Yeah, she's growing. She's like, I feel like she's 10 pounds now. I'd have to weigh her, but it's crazy to see how much they change in a month, and it's hard to believe that they'll never be this small again. So every time I'm dealing with a screaming baby that I can console by, throwing her on my shoulder, I try to not take it for granted because I know she'll never be this small again.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a good way to reflect on it. And then also 10 pounds is like the mark. We're like, okay, they're starting to be a little more durable.
Yeah, exactly. Like, her head, she's got neck muscles and doing tummy time, and it's not as scary as the first couple of weeks where you feel like any move could be disastrous.
Are you guys getting a groove going?
Yeah, it's getting better. She slept for 6 hours last night. She had her bath and the nighttime milk, and then I got a 6-hour sleep in, which was nice. That was probably might be the record for the longest sleep she's had. So we need more of that. We had a night 2 nights ago where she didn't sleep for more than 2 hours, and that was terrible.
Yeah, well, hopefully some longer sleep sessions are in the near future. Peter, GM, want to welcome you to the show. How are you?
Great. Super happy for D's. I've dropped this alpha before, and it's not for everyone, but especially for the father. There's never been a better investment made than a night nurse. I slept with both kids when our night nurse was there, my normal 8 to 9 hours every single night, which was awesome. So, and also for new fathers, new kids, I think it's there's a level of comfort, and obviously you have to find a great person. We had someone who was like family, and it's not for everyone. A lot of moms are hesitant on this, but for anyone out there who's going to have some kids, you hear a lot of stories like these, which is great. It's still great, even when you're not sleeping, because babies in particular, are amazing. But if your wife is up for it, I've never made a better investment in my life than the night nurse ever.
Some real alpha there from Peter. So keep that in mind, folks, if you're going the newborn route. What are we going to talk about on today's show? We're going to start with some macro. Trump's Warsh pick. Feels like that's already 5 news cycles behind us at this point, but we got to chat through it. Epstein and Coinbase. Didn't see that one coming. SpaceX and XAI. Crypto's bear market blues. We got to talk about Hyperliquid. I know we talk about it every week, but we got to keep talking about it. It's the strongest thing we have. So we have to cling to it, plus a lot more. A couple of housekeeping items. We're live on Kick and X like we are every week. Make sure to follow our channel over there. We're going to do 2 Yeet giveaways at the end of today's show. So you are going to want to stick around for that as well. Before we get started, as always, a quick disclosure. The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not reflect the views or opinions of any organizations they are associated with. We are here to share insights, provoke thought, and maybe even stir some debate, but this is not, I repeat, not financial advice. While we talk about markets, investments, and trends, remember your financial decisions should be made with the help of your own research or with advice from a licensed professional. All right, let's get into it. I'll pull up the board. I'm sure we're selling off live like we do every Tuesday. Let's take a look at things. Oh, God. Prices are worse than they were last week, folks. I hate to be the one breaking the news to you, if this is news to you. Bitcoin's down 14% since last week. Were we really at 90K on last week's show? Man, that feels so long ago. Bitcoin's at 76 flat right now. It rallied a little bit yesterday. Seemingly thought we were going to get a relief bounce. Maybe not. ETH down 25% from last week's show. It's at 22.26. It's within 10% of going below 2K. Solana also down 20% from last week, hanging out at 100. Part of the problem here, there's no real macro or crypto specific headline you can point to necessarily that would be causing this, unless you want to chalk it up to Warsh. So maybe we start there, Peter. Curious for your thoughts. I know you were following the Fed chair selection process fairly closely. Any reactions to Trump's Warsh pick here for Fed chair, or I guess second part of the question, how does it impact near-term outlook, maybe midterm outlook?
Well, first off, I definitely, this is an L that I had to take in a pretty big way. I was early on Hassett, who steamed a lot, and then actually bought some Reader at 8 cents and 16 cents. He steamed all the way to 50. Was able to hedge a little bit with Warsh, but overall got smoked on this market. The good news for me, and I think a lot of sharp people capitalize on this quickly, and I think is a really interesting overall trend with prediction markets, is once Warsh started to steam, that was a great time to put in shorts. And I'm not a good I think shorting the market's extremely difficult. I have not broadly had success with it, but when I saw Warsh steaming, I did put Ethereum and silver shorts in, which basically paid off immediately in the Warsh out. We're having this Warsh out impact all markets at this point in time. I do think it was a good pick from my perspective, and I know it's a polarizing topic, but after Trump was so political with Powell, I think it made sense to go with a candidate who has probably the most respect of the candidates amongst economists and people within the Fed already. Clearly respected, has worked with Druckenmiller. I think a lot of people just believe in Warsh, and really what's impacting markets is that he's going to kind of go away from QE, or at least that's the speculation, and go into more of a QT environment and really prioritize the Fed's balance sheet. So that has real impacts on the market, because I think we were pricing in a very dovish chair who was just going to be pumping liquidity into the system, and that's why metals and other things were ripping and the dollar was going down. And as soon as we got Warsh, the Warsh out meant stronger dollar and commodities and other assets going down. So yeah, there's so many things that you can go into, so many different things you can try to analyze with Warsh, but it is certainly the biggest macro trend over the last week. And I think his bet is that technology, in particular AI, is going to be such a huge force from productivity that we might get some deflationary forces, and then we can still have a really strong economy because of that, while prioritizing keeping the dollar strong, the world reserve currency. There's so many geopolitical things going on right now. So I think it was a prudent pick, and it's not good for our crypto bags, but hopefully it's good for the US going forward.
Like what timeline? So you just said you think it's a good pick, and I generally agree. I think you laid out some good reasons why. So we're just getting washed out because QE perhaps no longer on the board as strongly as it was. So how does this play out? So is this going to be just a near-term dip, and then we'll start to grind back up because he is broadly seen as a net positive, or do you think it's longer impact here for the Warsh out?
We'll see. I mean, there's a lot to be. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think the biggest thing that Warsh could do in the short term, which definitely hurts our bag, is that he's going to close the K-shaped economy, which I think will help for midterms. He's definitely going to have a lot of rate cuts, I think, still, but because of the limiting on QE, that's going to impact a lot of assets like crypto and commodities. So the other play that I think he will make, that he has talked a lot about, is deregulation with commercial banks, and basically moving the balance sheet to commercial banks in the banking system, which Bessent has talked a lot about as well. So to me, all of this makes sense. It's just going to be some short-term pain, which honestly we need. And really, the thing for midterms is, can they figure out a way to close this K-shaped economy to a degree, which I think will be coupled with some form of helicopter money from the Trump admin. Something's going to happen there, because they know they need to do something ahead of these midterms. Just this administration and Republicans in general are not looking good in the prediction markets ahead of midterms.
So when you say close the K-shaped economy, does that mean stocks, assets, bigger assets trade down, but Main Street has more purchasing power?
Inflation comes way down, stronger dollar, so you don't have as much inflation. The wealthy don't have as much of an advantage sitting in assets, and that plus some form of helicopter money would definitely give that group of people that are really struggling. I mean, I think this isn't exactly right, but let's say 10% of the country's doing pretty damn well that own assets, and then 90% of the country's not doing well. So how do you help that? You try to cut down on inflation. You try to give them some liquidity and some form of helicopter money. And by pushing down some asset prices, that's going to bring affordability into other things. That's going to make that easier for the bottom 90%. So I think that's kind of the general strategy here. Plus, we have a huge deflationary force with AI. I think we'll still see a lot of Fed rate cuts, which would be big for housing and affordability in housing, which is probably one of the biggest factors from an inflation. And just I think a lot of people have lost the dream of owning a house, which is not good for this country. That was the old American dream: is you get a great job, you get a house, you get the picket fence, you get a family. And the reality is most people can't afford a house, let alone being able to support a family. So I think that's broadly going to be the goal. Now, a lot of things need to happen for that to come to fruition, but that's my view and kind of what they're going to try to do here.
Appreciate your thoughts. And as you were going through that, it just was kind of ringing bells in my head about this. Is also what Besant came out and it was kind of all about the first quarter of the Trump 2025 era, right? It was like, we're gonna elevate Main Street. And then as assets started dropping, they kind of went away from that. So I guess we'll see if Warsh is able to, in his independent role, stick with it perhaps a bit longer than Besant. But a stronger dollar goes against some of what Trump has been kind of aiming for, right? The weaker dollar enables more exports, cheaper imports. So it's a tricky.
The dollar was getting smoked, though. And when you look at the dollar, you're just looking at this. Obviously, the chart doesn't look great beforehand, but keep in mind, this is the dollar on a relative basis to other fiat currencies. If you had a basket of just fiat currencies and how they're doing, they're getting smoked. And probably the easiest chart to look at to just visualize how fiat currencies are performing is the price of gold. And gold was just an absolute rocket ship until the Warsh out.
So let's go there. Does the metals trade over? So we had silver. Like, this is like almost the Thanksgiving turkey chart right here. Basically, from the time it was on Hyperliquid, it was just straight over. And then in one day, all the gains wiped out, although it has been rebounding. In the gold chart, not quite as drastic, but similar. Gold had gone all the way to 5,700, went down to, did it really wick to 4,470? Wow. But yeah, I mean, you've been a metals bull. So is it bull off top? Like, how does the metals trade look from here?
I'd say I've been more of a gold bull. I am bullish on rare earths. I think copper is really interesting. Silver, I really, outside of some good timing with the short, which was really fortunate given I had just blown a bunch of money on the Fed chair. I'm not, the silver thing's a little more speculative to me, and I think that's obvious. Gold, to me, gold is still functioning as, the best debasement hedge in my eyes. That maybe the S&P 500. So I'm still bullish on gold. I think it deserves to be in your portfolio. Obviously, that was a violent move, but it was a violent move after just a crazy upswing. So we'll see. I think it's going to consolidate, find its level, and then my bet is that fiat currencies will still continue to get devalued. And I do think, Trump's going to get what he wants in terms of a weaker dollar, just maybe not at the rate that it was going. And I think that was a real concern. And I think that's probably the main reason to be bullish on Warsh for the U.S. long term.
All right. Well, Deez, I think you said perhaps that your dad was getting in the metals trade. Catch us up.
I talk to my dad very rarely about markets, but he was, I think, happy to buy the dip yesterday on some of the metals. I think he may have been feeling some FOMO with the prices last week. So we'll see how he does. But yeah, I was curious if Peter was buying the dip at all. Also, I keep looking at copper. I know it's not trading the exact same as silver and gold, but it's still another interesting one that actually didn't really dump that hard. But I guess it didn't also go up as hard, so it didn't have as much dump. Also, when I look at the charts on like TradingView versus Hyperliquid, I feel like the Hyperliquid chart's too new. It's too fresh. It doesn't have all of the data. But yeah, did you buy any of these dips, Peter, or not? Not really.
Like I said, if you just take all of my shorts that I've ever made, I broadly have lost, excluding the basis trade, the basis trade really helped me kind of navigate this cycle a bit more. I've been doing the basis trade with these metals. It's not the case now, but last week, if you looked at funding rates for silver, it's just ridiculous. Incredible opportunity. So I didn't buy any more. I've held my gold position for years and years and years. I didn't add at all during the run up, and I certainly didn't sell any of my gold, even with this crazy price action. That's just kind of a long-term hold. Maybe I should have considered a little bit of a rebalance, which is, I think, the only real way to kind of trade your portfolio in a process-oriented fashion. I ended up having more gold, especially last week before Warsh, as a percentage allocation than what I set out to have. But at the time, I still feel pretty good about gold. But I have not been active in silver at all, with the exception of a short, that plus Ethereum, when the Warsh steam started to happen. And that was really obvious. I mean, once Warsh started to move, really well, you knew that was one of the easiest shorts that I've seen. And again, I'm not an expert trader. I don't advocate shorting. Most people get crushed shorting, me included. I've made plenty of errors shorting the markets, but that was one that seemed like a layup.
Yeah, I mean, ETH didn't even really bounce. At least with silver, or you got to worry about it bounce. I feel like with ETH, I'm not even worried about it bouncing. I'm just like, it's just limp. You had Vitalik come out today and put out a long post about how he thinks maybe L2s aren't the North Star, and that maybe some time and energy has been wasted there. And the thing with ETH in particular is like, the network's great. I love using it, but the transactions now are like 20 cents, 50 cents. Like, I don't need to hold a bunch of ETH to use the network, and I don't really have any reason to hold it other than that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if ETH is like $1,500 and 2 more shows. But I've always been I think an ETH hater for a while now.
Just some nasty price action. So it was just over 3K. It was just kind of ranging there, and then just straight shot down to 22. And like you said, there hasn't really been much of a relief bounce, not even really a 10% bounce off the bottom. I struggle. I feel like you have to separate the token from the network, but I feel like the network had been fundamentally gaining some real steam. Like transactions were at all-time high. They set up the post-quantum team. Tokenization was the buzzword of January, but none of that seems to be mattering for the price of ETH, the token. And then now the latest out of Vitalik, and this is kind of a fairly big deal, right? So I mean, Vitalik was one who was pushing the L2 concept in 2020, 2021 era, and now effectively reversing course. And then it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Like he goes into some specifics for what he thinks L2s should be if they exist. But the high level 5,000 foot view takeaway from this is ETH doesn't need L2s anymore. The more nuanced view is if you're going to create an L2, you need to focus on your niche and you better be very good at it, which I think a lot of us have somewhat kind of come to understand over the last couple of years, but it's a little violent to see it in person here from Vitalik. So, I mean,
Yeah, he just posted it like an hour ago too, or like not even, it's not even 2 hours old. So I was making breakfast, reading this, like, what the fuck?
So what does this mean for L2 tokens? I can't imagine it's good. And we do have a big one launching in 6 days. So has Mega made any moves on this? So Mega it's down 6% on the day. I mean, it kind of fell alongside everything else. But the Mega ETH ICO was at a billion, right? So it's trading about 30% over the ICO at this point. And no longer a slam dunk trade. And I think Mega ETH, I've already seen, I think Bread posted, I think others have started to share. They feel like they are in this niche of how you can still be a valuable L2. But
they're in that like hyperscaling niche of, the L1 can never be as performant as Mega ETH. I'm curious how that goes. Obviously, I put some money in, but not a giant position. I put like 50 grand in to the public raise.
Yeah. So I guess on that, so how are you feeling? So like, if you had the chance to do it again, knowing Talk was going to come out and bash L2s effectively, would you do it?
No, I mean, if I knew the value of my tokens that are going to be locked for a year are, 30% higher than the ETH I put in, like I probably wouldn't have done it, or the USD I put in. But it's locked up. I put a small amount enough in that if it does perform poorly, I'm not really too mad about it. But I'm excited to use it and fuck around with new stuff. So I'm excited for that regardless of the price. But I do think the the timing of this isn't great.
I do wonder if we're just going to get a total reset of valuations on these new protocols.
I mean, there was a period of time from 2001, 2002 to, now that when you raised a bunch of money, you could raise a bunch for all these infrastructure plays because that was the North Star. And VCs would plow, hundreds of millions of dollars at $1 billion+ valuations for this stuff. And I think it's healthy if this shit goes down, even if I lose money, because at the end of the day, building more infrastructure that's not going to be used isn't helping anybody. Like, I think apps should have way more funding than infrastructure, because we need breakout apps to get people to use this shit, not infrastructure. So I think, like, for smart people, incentive wise, it was game theoretically correct to maybe work on L2s and raise a bunch of money and, get paid. But like, yeah, it's not great when I see friends like interns stepping down from Monad before they even get their tokens unlocked. Like, that's not what I want to see as someone who put money in there.
I guess I've got the Infinex chart up because this one is, I'm surprised more folks aren't talking about this. So, I mean, Infinex, pretty
I don't know anyone who protocol. Put money in.
Their tokens, they launched they TGE'd last Friday. $27 million market cap, 138 million FTV. The FTV feels maybe a little more in line, but if you would have told me Infinex is going to have a $27 million market cap, like I just wouldn't have believed.
I know absolutely nothing about Infinex other than that trading tournament they did that I wasn't invited to. That's the only thing I know about Infinex.
It's like
and then I see people bash Kane for having a nice house. Like, that's all I see on Twitter about Infinex at all. And I don't see anyone in any group chat I'm in talk about it.
Maybe that's part of the bear case there. I've used it. It is an app. I think it's kind of like it kind of balances the line of app and infrastructure. So basically, it's an app that it's a little bit easier to use than some traditional crypto tools. You can use fingerprint biometrics to get in. Then you can do these things called swidges, their version of swaps.
So it's a phone app predominantly?
I use it on desktop.
Oh, okay.
So it's more of an everything type app for crypto, where you can hold assets there, you can trade, you can launch perps from there. It's, as I understand it, their mission was to try to solve a lot of the user experience issues from
Gotcha.
legacy crypto apps. I thought their volume and user base was kind of on par with some of the larger protocols. So I guess that's why I'm still, my jaw's a little on the floor at this. But I guess the optimistic view here, and then we'll move on from Infinex, is that if we start to see more realistic valuations on some of these tokens, there might be some very strong buy ops coming up. If you have longer term time horizons on some of these buys. But we kind of went there. I want to talk a crypto bear market. I guess first question, and Peter, maybe I'll throw this one to you. I've been pretty staunch. I was not a 4-year cycle believer. I thought that we had broken out of that. Just the sample size of 3 wasn't really enough to do it for me. But it's much harder at this. It's getting harder and harder to say we're not in the 4-year cycle. It's basically the 4-year cycle playing out. Do you have a read on that? Have you succumbed to the 4-year cycle thesis yet for, I guess, or part 2 of this question is like, or why else do you think crypto is selling off so hard compared to everything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly part of it in my eyes. I didn't think it was going to be a 4-year cycle either, given kind of the momentum we've had. I think there's a couple things that are really impacting crypto, and we'll start with Bitcoin. I think number one, the quantum risk people are really starting to get fearful of, and that's a tricky one to kind of talk through. I'm certainly not an expert. Smarter people than me have discussed this a ton. Regardless of how you feel about it, the market certainly feels it's a risk. Number two, I think Bitcoin in particular is viewed as a US asset now in some ways, and almost as a Trump asset in some ways, which, given how things have gone, is not viewed well, especially given how much Bitcoin strategy owns. So I think that's part of what's happening here, is something that's moving away from digital gold. And then, we just hit on the 4-year cycle. Just look at so much sell pressure from like OG whales, like the combination of those things, and then who's buying right now? That's the other question. As we had all the ETF flows, and now most people who bought IBIT and the ETFs and everyone, they're down on their money. So it's a tricky market right now. I'm still optimistic about Bitcoin long term. I think we'll be able to solve the quantum issue. I think there's still a ton of value in having the network and being able to move large sums of money permissionlessly on Bitcoin. I still am a believer. I don't know what the buying point should be. I certainly feel there could be more pain here in the short term. I'm not like loading up the clip to buy more Bitcoin here. And then the rest of crypto is just selling off because it's not the shiny new thing anymore. Crazy valuations don't make sense. There's still a couple pockets that I really like, Hype and Lighter in particular, Hype especially. I think what happened with metals is very encouraging for those businesses. But yeah, crypto valuations are insane, and they're going to continue to chop down until we deliver real value to society. And obviously it's impacted by Bitcoin, which kind of drives a lot of the rest of the market. So Bitcoin, I still believe in long term. I think it belongs in portfolios. And then there's a couple pockets that I'm still really interested in, mostly Hype and Lighter at this point in time. But the L1s, it's been ugly. I don't know.
I still
put you guys go to that.
I put ETH in that conversation still. I've been ETH pilled a bit.
I like that. I like ETH. I like ETH generally too. And I'm sitting on some CryptoPunks, so I hope ETH does well.
We've got some exposure. I thought Good Alexander had a pretty interesting write-up on reasons why crypto is down. You mentioned some of these points, but basically his first one, like basically the tokenized stock boom isn't driving any type of fee capture. So it's happening, but it's not necessarily good for network tokens. Saying that inflation hedge basically went to gold, stocks, and AI, didn't go to crypto. That crypto is largely trading aligned with Trump approval rating, and Trump approval rating is down. The digital gold story effectively not working because gold is actively going up every day, and crypto and Bitcoin has not. And then he also says the AI crypto relation not really panning out yet. I think which we should come back to, because this one actually feels like it might be on the cusp of something. He puts DATS down here as double-edged sword, and then quantum fears. He puts maybe quantum fears. He's saying he thinks we're memeing ourselves more than what people are trading on it. So I think this is probably up for debate. But this feels like actually one of the more comprehensive lists I've seen for why crypto could be underperforming here. And I think it's hard to argue with any of these points, really. But my takeaway is I think a lot of these could be reversed, so to speak, or some of these could. Right. So like gold's outperforming Bitcoin. If that starts to switch, then you can start, maybe the digital gold story starts to come back. AI crypto not really being interrelated. Well, we saw our first glimpses this past week that maybe with an explosion of AI agents actually starting to operate in the digital economy, maybe they will choose crypto. Maybe that's easier for them, and quantum can be addressed. So I think this is spot on, but also I've got some hope in that we can combat some of these, and also like the Trump approval rating could certainly reverse. Although I don't know if that's happening here in the near term. But Dee's, curious for your thoughts. I don't know if you saw this or if you have your own thoughts for why we may be seeing the underperformance.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really well said. I did see that yesterday. I think in general, it's just the shiny thing syndrome is the most important thing. And as capital allocators, you're just chasing the hot ball of money wherever there is the most attention. That's where the most capital gets allocated. It's just not been an exciting thing for a lot of people. I think probably sometime around when the Trump coin came out was like the last time quote unquote normies got onboarded, and a lot of them who didn't sell that weekend took a loss and left. And there really hasn't been any other type of onboarding event since. So I think it all tracks and makes sense. It's so bad. I have a list of like 100 stocks I'm looking at. Just I'm like, wow, this Microsoft dip, like, is this interesting? Like, it was at $550, now it's at $400. I'm looking at fucking Costco, dude. It's over. Like, I'm at Costco and I'm like, man, I'm like, every time I'm at Costco, this shit's in, like, it's full of people. Like, let's look at the Costco chart. It's like,
I love that. I'm a big Costco bull. They came out with some fire dunks too. I need to get those shoes.
I think they're releasing more in new locations.
Oh my God, it's $1,000 a share.
But yeah, like, I'm looking at this shit, Tyler. It's grim. Like, I made a new trading view list that's just stocks, and I'm going through this because, like, some of them go up.
Will Costco flip ETH in 2026?
Yeah, by price.
We need the myriad market.
I think another one we were talking about was Hood. I saw it. Mentioned that in the chat, but like Hood is off a cliff. It's at like $85 again. And it was just at 150, so it's almost down 50%. So I mean, if you want to buy stuff at good values, like, I think there's actual businesses that might have good values to buy too, that aren't just, our vaporous coins.
Is Hood selling off because of its crypto ties? This is a significant sell-off now at this point.
I don't know. Every time I open up my stock list, I look at SanDisk and Micron, and I just like think, man, if I just hit that rotation of like September crypto gains into one or two of these fucking companies, it's all we needed to do. But yeah, I don't know about the Hood sell-off. Like, I saw Adam from Proof of Play is now working. Fern. He's at Robinhood now. They're head of product in the DeFi area. Head of product on chain and DeFi at Robinhood. So that's interesting. That came out last night, I think. He posted that. So I mean, yeah, they're clearly building out the crypto team there, and the price is clearly showing that they're involved in crypto. So I don't know. It's more interesting at $80 than it is at $150. I can't say that.
Yeah, and so I missed the $100 entry and then missed the whole run to 150, and I was kicking myself. Well, here I am. I've got it 14% lower, and I find myself not wanting to enter the trade. Even though I don't really know, I guess what has changed. Maybe they've got some competition. I guess maybe you can make the argument Hyperliquid's a competitor for them, but it's a very different.
I saw that yesterday, just comparing Hype and their revenue and everything to Robinhood. That'd be a reason to be bearish Robinhood. I still like the company a lot. I think the bigger issue with buying Robinhood right now is just your overall view of stocks. And I think a lot of people view stocks as priced to perfection.
Yeah.
But that's another conversation. And generally, if you have a long-term time horizon, stocks are going to do well. Like we talked about from a debasement perspective, S&P 500 is probably your best bet. That and or gold, and hopefully Bitcoin matures into that. But we'll see. It's a very, very tricky time to allocate capital with all the cross currents.
Another thing we missed this weekend too was, or we didn't mention it yet, was the merger between XAI or Xi or whatever and SpaceX.
Let's go there. Yeah.
Because that was pretty big news.
Huge. So the story, SpaceX is merging with XAI. XAI valued at $250 billion in this deal, and they're combined. They're going to be $1.25 trillion combined ahead of, I believe, a June IPO is what they're targeting. So this is going to be a blockbuster IPO. Effectively getting your second chance to bet on an Elon company, but also kind of priced at perfection. Like it's not the most attractive IPO. Price tag at 1.25 trillion. Peter, like, are you moving aside funds to buy in IPO day at 1.25?
So I'm pretty close to this. I know a lot of SpaceX holders actually was looking pretty heavily at SpaceX at 800 billion as an investment, which I thought made some sense. But the issue was getting access to SpaceX at that number broadly meant you were going to get feed to death. You were buying into some, SPV that had access to it, or you're buying. We don't need to go there, but basically there's a lot of fees, and realistically you weren't actually buying at 800 billion. But I do think SpaceX is an unbelievable company. Starlink is one of the best products I've ever used, and they have a real moat and no real competition kind of for what they're doing. It's still extremely speculative, still priced really high, but they have significant revenue, $16 billion, which, I don't know if it's relevant to the valuation, but they're starting to build a real business with what looks like going to be really high EBITDA margins long term. And I just expect Starlink to continue to grow in a huge way. And there's other use cases, but that to me is like the main part of the business is Starlink can be just gargantuan. So I was excited about it, and I think the market was excited about this IPO. I think there's still some pessimism. Adding XAI is extremely dilutive, and XAI is burning over $1 billion a month. This to me is a clear move by Elon to basically save XAI. I mean, save is maybe strong, but it's very good for XAI shareholders, which Elon's a big one of. It gives XAI much more capital to pursue different endeavors. I think this is a huge indicator and motivated by Elon trying to go after Sam Altman, who is his clear number one rival, gives him a way to compete more competitively. And it's extremely dilutive to SpaceX. I think together it's not accretive. Maybe you could argue that space being on the, you now have a way to bet on the frontier of space and the frontier of AI. There's plenty of other ways to bet on AI. So to me, this is just a life raft to XAI. Them being worth 250 billion is pretty wild to me. Given they're doing about 3 billion in revenue, burning $1 billion a month, and there's just the biggest competition. It's the most competitive space is XAI, what XAI is competing in. You're going against Anthropic, you're going against OpenAI, you're going against Google, you're going against Microsoft, you're going against Meta, like the best companies, best CEOs you're competing against, and you're tying that asset to SpaceX, which has no Mag 7 competition and a real business that looks good. So dilutive to SpaceX shareholders. And I don't think this IPO is going to do as well as if it would have just been SpaceX by itself.
I think that's fair. I mean, for sure. I was just going to make the comment that you're getting a XAI at 25% of OpenAI valuation. So there's there's your discount.
Look at this. Look at the financials. The companies are massively different, massively. And also, you're valuing it at 250 million. Anthropic just raised it 350 billion, and Anthropic is absolutely kicking XAI's ass right now. I mean, Anthropic is the hottest thing. Claude is just unbelievable. And of course, we've seen a lot of leapfrogging in this space, and that's again points to that how much competition there is. But I think any sophisticated investor is going to bet on Anthropic at 350 versus XAI at 250. And I think the same would be said versus OpenAI, but OpenAI at least has real numbers. I mean,
but those companies aren't building data centers in space.
That is the part that I think is going to become a narrative, and I think is very smart. And I know Musk will lean into that. And if there's one person to bet on, it's Musk, who has created an immense amount of enterprise value across Tesla and all these companies through a narrative. He's delivering, obviously, now. And like I've talked about on the show, I think the best piece of technology I've ever used is Tesla full self-driving. Cloud Code is right there. But betting against Elon's generally been bad. And I think we're going to hear tons about how SpaceX is going to build data centers in space, and it's going to power XAI.
Probably from me.
It's going to be a big narrative for sure.
I'm into it. I do wonder if they're going to eventually merge Tesla.
18%, I think, on Polymarket. Can you look at that?
There's a Polymarket on that.
What's the there it is, Tesla and SpaceX by June. Definitely not by June 30th.
Ooh, it's
27
rising.
Shot up.
That seems insane. Well, there's only 36,000 in volume.
Yeah, there's no action. Okay. That seems
this is high.
I would bet the no on that one.
What's the order book?
It's very thin.
Not look good.
You're not getting more than like $500 of volume.
I don't think it's happening anytime soon, but on like a 5-year time horizon, maybe. It's like, because the Tesla products make sense.
Optimus and XAI is what saves XAI in my mind. That's the best use case for what they're building. People will point like, oh, Grok's and Tesla. It's just an assistant. It's helping you with maps, which you don't even need LLMs for the stuff that it's doing in your car right now. Yeah, granted, it's cool and there's some things that are nice, but like the best use case for XAI in my mind that has a realistic shot is just really leaning into robotics, and they have clear synergies there. So that would be something that makes sense to me.
Curious if Tesla stock sells off as that approaches, because to date this was the only way to bet on Elon. If you're actually more interested in the space biz, then perhaps you rotate. So will he be able to? The two companies will be 2.5 trillion, 2.6 combined.
Tesla's at 1.5 right now, yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned Claude. Maybe we go there. I think unless you were under a rock this weekend, you
oh my god,
saw Moltbook Mania play out. Crypto had a front row seat at the table. I think that Moltbook itself went viral either Thursday night or Friday night. I think it was Thursday night. The token that was launched on Base went 0 to 120 million in a day. One of the fastest around. We had just had the Penguin token run, White Whale before that. The velocity of running to 9 figures seems to be increasing. It is since, of course, it's down 80%. As most of these meme trades are. But Moltbook itself was effectively like a Reddit-like site where everyone's Claude bots could go and start chatting amongst each other. And then it started to seem like on the surface, the agents were starting to come up with their own religions and starting to like play tricks on their humans and start to work on their own secret languages. And as we dug in, people were like, hey, pump the brakes. Like humans could be prompting them to do these things. And then there was folks on pretty split on like how real the whole Moltbook thing was. There's a case to be made that it was effectively one of our first glimpses of AGI, which brought me back, of course, to Frank D. God's AGI on Solana, which we can come back to because maybe he was just early on with that take. But I think one of the immediate takeaways is that a lot of the folks who have been in like following Moltbook, following these Claude agents, and actually starting to build apps with them, getting them to actually perform transactions for them as like their personal assistants or whatnot. They want to find ways for these bots to actually participate in commerce. And a lot of them are quickly coming to the conclusion that crypto might be the easiest way for that to happen, including non-crypto people, which is why I actually think it's a little bit more of a valid commentary. But curious, Diesel, maybe I'll toss it to you. Were you following this? Were you deep in? What are your reactions to Moltbook Mania?
Yeah, I never bought Molt, but watched it and bought a bunch of other shit. I think in general there is a cohort of like 2,500 people who really want to gamble on whatever the hot narrative is, and this is the hot narrative right now. We have been hearing about vibe coding and Claude code for months now, and this is like one of the first things we could speculate on. I think it's kind of interesting that it's happening on Base more than Solana this time. I was kind of surprised to see a token go from 0 to 100 plus on Base. I forgot that they can do that over there. But I think in general, the dilution is so rapid. Like we had before the Malt Mania, we had the Bags app mania of, I don't even know if you want to say that lasted a week, but we had Ralph and we had the Tomato, which is my favorite, which actually wasn't even on the Bags app. Sorry, that Tomato is on the Pump. But then we also had what's the other big one that wasn't Ralph that I'm forgetting that like blew up because the guy kind of imploded. Gas. Yeah. I mean, it's just shit happens so fast. I can barely remember the tickers. I got like whiplash. So the rotation from that to all the Molt and Claude things, because Claude bot came out, and then Anthropic was like, hey, you can't name the bot like phonetically the same as Claude because it's just confusing people. So then they changed it to Molt, and then people are like, dude, Molt sounds like, you know, something my grandma would do before making dinner. Like, I don't want to buy Molt. So then they renamed it to Open Claw. So it's like the same thing is named 3 different things, and every name spawned a bunch of tokens around it that are all around this Claw and Molt. I don't know how much of it's gonna stick. Like, I feel like the problem with the quote unquote trenches right now is that it is these same, like, I don't know if it's 2,500 people. I'm just throwing that number out there because like when I open up FOMO on a lot of these tokens, I see like 1,000 to 2,000 holders or something. So I'm just saying like 2,500 people. But none of them have, you know, an average hold time over a fucking day. And if they don't buy something under 5 mil, they don't really want to hold it for more than a day. And it's just like hard to get behind something because, you know, when you wake up after you go to bed, there's going to be 3 new things that people bought and they sold off all your shit to buy it because like this guy who founded a school 5 years ago where like, you know, programmers online, that's a terrible thing, but the guy who founded Lambda School, which was like that way for people to get a CS degree and then like pay it back through a % of their income. He made this thing called Kelly Claude, and people are like, oh, this fucking crack founder, like this is awesome. Full send it. And then like you have all these other people who have done things adjacent to AI or computer science come in and drop something, and like the people who are holding the one token sell it to go buy the next token. And like it's all very clear on FOMO if you follow Frank or any of the big accounts on FOMO. Like they're buying and selling hundreds of these fucking tokens, and like they don't know exactly which ones are going to take off. They just want exposure to all of it. And it's just like a big game of hot potato. Like if this was 2024, a token like Banker would be like, I genuinely believe it would be like 250 to 500 million right now. But since the fucking trenches cannot come together and just like buy something and hold it, if they got in over the price of 5 mil, like they don't want it. This thing is kind of powering a lot of these agent tokens. It's like, to me, it's like the pump fund of agent tokens. But instead of buying this, people are like, oh, well, we got to buy Claunch because Claunch is like the first fucking AI centric launchpad that's like AI itself and like doesn't have devs. It's just AI. And it's like, okay, well, gotta sell Banker to buy Claunch. And then anytime Claunch gets to like 20 mil, they're like, oh, no, we're selling this shit. And, you know, there's like a new launchpad every day. And I don't know, it's tiresome to try to keep up with it. And I wish we could just go back to like being okay top blasting something and believing in it rather than just trying to find like the next sub 1 or 5 mil runner that we can dump in 6 hours. Because that's what makes it tiresome to me, and it makes it like really hard to convince anybody that any of this is real because it's just dumped like within a day or two.
Sure, and all the tokens that pumped Friday, Saturday now are all down 80%, which is just kind of a
Why would you buy one of those over like some new token that also has Claw or Molt in it that could be the next Moltbook or Claunch or whatever the fuck?
But putting like individual tokens tied to some of these things aside, because 99% of them are all worthless, right? They might see some pumps very briefly. I think conceptually there is something here that may not have been. That like more people are coming to the table that as we really start having personal AI assistants, if you want them to transact for you, it actually might make sense for them to be doing that on crypto rails. And Peter, I'm curious for your thoughts, less on these tokens, but more just conceptually. Hey, have you gone down the? I know you've been coding with Claude. But have you done the agents at all, like Claude bots?
I have not yet. I'm waiting for more competition to come out. I think there's real security trade-offs by getting this going. I know I have a bunch of friends that are loving it. I'm using Claude Code and Gemini and a variety of AI tools every single day. I actually had a lot of fun with the Replit, again, which I am really impressed by the Replit product. They just did a really nice fundraise, tripled their enterprise value from 3 billion to 9 billion in the course of 4 months. So there's so many great things out there. I actually have a friend who's building something very similar to whatever what's it called now? I don't even know what it's called now.
OpenClaw.
OpenClaw. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's the name. It's so hard to keep track of.
That is clearly going to be one of the main use cases. But keep in mind, when you just enable an agent to go through a lot of your personal stuff, it is a real trade-off on privacy and security. So for what I'm trying to accomplish, I am perfectly happy with what I'm doing in Claude, and there's obviously trade-offs there too. But yeah, it's cool to see, and hopefully we'll have more competition. I would be shocked if we don't see Google and Claude themselves and other, these big companies put out products that are very similar. So
the guard, I'm also I'm like you. I'm still a little risk averse, and like everything's iterating so quickly. Like I'm sure we'll have a more secure version of this that you can spin up perhaps a little bit even easier within a few weeks.
For sure. Just from a high level, I think it's really important to be experimenting and playing with these tools. If you don't, I think you're going to get left behind. The second aspect where you can have some caution and you don't have to jump to the next hot thing every time is that what we're using today is the worst the products are going to be forever. And when something new comes out, you can, unless there's some really big first mover advantage for what you do specifically, you can generally wait to just see kind of what happens. So that's what I try to be curious and, really get my hands dirty while also being patient, given the main trade-offs that you're making by utilizing these tools are broadly around security and privacy. And especially if you're using, I think that some of the worst things that we'll see at some point in time is people firing up these agents on computers that have hot wallets and just not thinking through their what they're doing on their computers, even their email. There's real risk with these products. So just be cognizant of that and understand what you're doing. And I think we'll see more and more products come out.
Emails are getting a lot of people in a lot of hot water right now, which we haven't even talked about. We're not going to have time to get into it, but Decrypt did publish the article yesterday. Epstein, early Coinbase investor. I missed that. So his ties to the crypto space were certainly there as well. I'm sure there'll be plenty more content as this story continues to unfold. We haven't talked about Hyperliquid. We don't have much time, but we got to talk about it a little bit. They launched their outcomes markets Hip3 yesterday. The token soared all the way to 38 overnight, and then gave all the gains back. So it still is at least somewhat tied to crypto majors here. unfortunately. D's, is the hype bull case stronger than ever here? I mean, maybe it's too consensus. Like, I'm trying to come up with ways to FUD it.
Yeah,
running out of ammo.
it has felt like too consensus at multiple times throughout the year, and then every time I put out a Twitter poll, it's like, oh, it's not really consensus at all. I'm just in this echo chamber of people who think it's consensus. But I do think just as the broader market sells off, like it has to, like gravity is real. If the whole market's selling off, I don't think this can just go up. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes under $30. Like if Bitcoin is pushing, what is it now, 75K? Like if Bitcoin's at 69K, like hype's probably under $30, no matter what the volumes or metrics look like, because that's just how this ecosystem has worked. So I'm not, itching to sell or do anything here. I'm just kind of holding, but I've been just kind of holding, I feel like, since the second day Hyperliquid came out. So it's just a different position. I do think yesterday I saw it the most on the timeline that I've seen in a while, but the outperformance was just ridiculous. Like things were going down and Hyperliquid was $37. It's bad when like, I'm not going to point out anyone in particular, but like the crypto content creators are like, I don't know why I own anything but hype. I'm up 50% on hype, but like I saw down everything else. And it's like, yeah, it's probably a good sign that like a lot of people were like, I saw people who were willingly admitting on the timeline their biggest bag is Ethereum. Like if my biggest bag was Ethereum in 2026, I won't even fucking show myself on the timeline. But they're like, maybe I should be rotating into hype. It's just, it's tough. I try not to take too much sentiment from the timeline because it is a very like echo chambery place, especially because I like tweet the price of hype and then tweet Hyperliquid, and then the algorithm's like, oh, show this guy Hyperliquid stuff because he tweeted Hyperliquid, and then when you like end half your tweets in Hyperliquid, you just see more Hyperliquid stuff. But I mean, I just looking at the volumes and stuff, we're still over, especially on silver. It's still like 1.2 billion basically in a day still. So seeing the volumes and stuff continue to be great on especially the Hip3 stuff is something I like to see regardless of the price of hype.
Yeah,
and then if you want to, compare it, like, okay, hype's down today. Well, like go look at Robinhood. Like there you go. Hype looks bad. Robinhood looks worse. Hype wins. Hyperliquid.
I think part of my bear case in Q4 was I thought the perps trade may decline in a bear market. But this Hip3 stuff flips that. Like
there's clearly a big demand
parabolic. For it. It's like this is a big. So this changes that, my view, or like one of the bear cases that I had is effectively gone, and flipped into a bull case. So I'm currently still mostly sidelined, but trying to find an entry. Was wondering yesterday if I should, maybe this is top side, if I should flip a good chunk of my Bitcoin holdings into hype. It's not available on Coinbase yet, so maybe Brian Armstrong will list it one day as one of the most important assets in crypto. But
I mean, isn't it? I thought it was.
It's on the roadmap.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say I thought like last week we talked about that.
I tried turning it on there.
Gotcha.
It's not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like if you get a nasty dump on Bitcoin, like Bitcoin right now is at support in the short term here at 75K. If this breaks down and you get a flush to like 69K or something, maybe look for a bid on hype under 30. Like that might be my move. Try to play it as like more of a swing with like the Bitcoin in the broader environment, but I don't know. I'm comfy in hype. I mean, I've talked about every show. I sold like, I sold enough hype last year that I can hold what I have now and be happy. And some of the hype I sold last year, like I was happy to sell it at 30, 33, 39, 42, whatever. Like I was happy to sell at that price last year, but not happy to sell at that price now. Because just so much has happened since. Like last year, there was just a lot of ideas for what could happen, but a lot of those actually kind of crystallized into things that did happen.
I do think, thinking through this trade, if you feel there's growing consensus that Bitcoin is going to range in the 60 to 70K range, we're going to get another dump. go sub 70, maybe just sit there with some peaks and valleys for maybe even like 6 months. So the question is, what could anything outperform in that time? If the answer is yes, it's got to be high, most likely. But there's also not a slam dunk that anything can seriously outperform in that type of a macro backdrop. So certainly not a slam dunk by any means. But that's the thought process I'm going through. I'm sure we'll revisit it on a future show. We are at the top of the hour, and I want to get to our Yeet giveaways. We're going to do 2 folks. So producer Charlie is going to get that wheel up and running for us. Again, this is for everyone who has signed up on Yeet with the Morning Minute affiliate code. And Charlie, whenever you're ready, let's get that wheel ready and let's do some spins. I think we're doing bronze tier today. Not coming. Wang Me. All right, Wang Me, you are our first winner. That's $500 for your Yeet account. Thank you for playing. We're going to spin the wheel one more time. 2 giveaways today. All right, let's let it rip. Making sure I'm sure. More active folks in the chat today. All that chat activity paid off. So you both won. Producer Charlie will work with you both to get you over those funds. We did get a warning from Yeet. A lot of folks multi-accounting, so do not multi-account if you want to be eligible for these prizes. They are cracking down on that. But all of our listeners, want to thank you for joining. Want to thank my co-hosts, Peter, Dees. Thank you as always, folks. We'll be back next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have a great week. Goodbye.